Mark chapter 13. And I know I normally don't stay in the same text for both the Sunday school hour and the preaching hour. However, we just finished our series on the history of the Bible last week, and been praying about and thinking about what new series to start. I want to get into another book, but I think we'll start that next week. So, Lord willing, next week I'll start a new series. Mark chapter 13, beginning verse 24. It says, "But in those days, after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars of heaven shall fall, the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. Then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Then shall he send his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is near. So ye in like manner, when ye shall see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done." The title of my message is Jesus is Coming. Jesus is coming. In those days, he says, but in those days. In the context, he's talking about the events of verses 6 through 23, which we looked at last time. After that tribulation, meaning the great tribulation period that Jesus spoke of. This is a transitionary statement, a transitionary period. What he's talking about here is going to take place immediately at the end of the tribulation, at the end of the tribulation period. He says, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall not give her light. It's amazing to me that every time there's an eclipse that happens of the sun or the moon, that people use this verse somewhere on the internet and start trying to figure out what this means. This isn't some mere eclipse that's being spoken of here. Over in Joel, the Old Testament book of Joel, chapter 2, verses 30 and 31. says, and I will show wonders in heaven, in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire, pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. Also in Zephaniah chapter 1. These Old Testament prophets had something to say about this. Says that day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. And then in Isaiah chapter 13, Isaiah chapter 13, verses 9 and 10. Says, behold, the day of the Lord cometh cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. He shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth. The moon shall not cause her light to shine. Even in the New Testament, besides what we just read, there are passages like Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2. Verses 19 and 20. As he brings up this from Joel, he says, and I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire, vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great notable day of the Lord come. And he says in verse 21, and it shall come to pass that whoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. And so, what we find is that this is a prophecy that is given, and it's told throughout the scriptures. In fact, there in our text in Mark chapter 13, Mark 13, all of this is connected. It says, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars of heaven shall fall, the powers there in heaven shall be shaken. You go all the way to the end of the New Testament in Revelation chapter 6, there is this prophecy. In Revelation chapter 6, this was given, this unveiling given to John as he was there on the Isle of Patmos. And he saw this in John chapter 6 in verses 12 and 13. It says, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Even goes so far as to say, in the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together. Every mountain, island were moved out of their places. This world has seen some terrible storms and some terrible things. Whether the stars will literally fall out of the sky, as seems to be indicated in these passages, or whether the earthquake will be so terrible on earth that it makes it appear that the stars are falling, I don't know. But one thing is for sure, it will be unlike anything the world has ever experienced. I wonder as I consider some of these things, if what is described here isn't some sort of an event in which meteors or asteroids, sometimes identified as falling stars, crash into the earth and maybe even cause the great earthquake. Such an encounter is a real possibility. God has set this universe, our solar system, our world in motion. We know there's all sorts of meteors and asteroids and all sorts of things flying through space. We know that God has put these things in order, but we also know that the judgment of God is coming. And such an encounter is a real possibility. However way this prophecy is to be taken, it will happen. It will happen, and this is mentioned throughout the scriptures. Haggai says this in Haggai chapter 2, verses 6 and 7. He says, "For thus saith the Lord of hosts, yet once it is a little while, I will shake the heavens, the earth and the sea and the dry land. I will shake all nations. The desire of all nations shall come." We get up in the morning. We expect the sun to be there, the moon to be there at night. We expect the stars, all that. We expect the mountains and the islands to be where they're at. Beloved, God is all powerful over all of these things. Indeed, do we not see the great and mighty power of God? Even in our own times when He can send great and powerful storms, even into our own land, where in a moment, entire landscapes are changed. North Carolina, Tennessee, places where courses of rivers are changed and cities are knocked off the face of the map. You say, "Preacher, I thought that the return of the Lord would be an exciting time." Indeed, it is for the child of God. But understand something, for those who are in rebellion to God, those who have waged war against God, this will be a terrible time. The ending of the tribulation period. There will be a great battle and all of those things. Jesus is coming to rule and to reign, and yes, to destroy and to fight against those who have rebelled against Him. And so what Jesus is describing here is, in this passage, from that perspective. Indeed, in verse 26, Mark 13 and verse 26, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. There will be two phases of Christ's second coming. The first phase, He's coming for His people. The second phase, he's coming with his people. I believe that this is the second phase of the second coming, which is being described here. We'll be coming back with him. The world will see Jesus coming in the clouds with great power and glory. At his coming, he will redeem the elect, restore the devastated earth, and establish his rule on the earth. In verse 27, he shall send his angels and gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. He'll send his angels to the uttermost parts of the earth to gather his elect. Who are they? Who are they? These are people who are saved during the tribulation period. There will be those who are saved. The gospel will be preached during the tribulation period. In fact, among those elect will be 144,000 Jewish witnesses. Now, contrary to the so-called Jehovah's Witnesses, it ain't them. The Bible tells us exactly who they are in Revelation chapter 7. Revelation chapter 7. Begin at verse 1. After these things, I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth. By the way, four corners of the earth, that means 4 quarters of the earth. This does not mean that the earth is flat. It's not. The Bible doesn't teach that there's 4 corners like a page from a book or something like that. So don't get all caught up with that sort of thing. But John says, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. So think of the 4 points of a compass, north, south, east, and west. The wind is being held still here. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. The tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Aser were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Nephthalim were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. After this, verse 9 says, I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand, cried with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. Verse 13, one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto them, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, these are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. He that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of waters, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. So what we see here is there's 144,000 from every tribe, from these tribes of Israel. And on top of that, we see there are individuals being saved during the tribulation from every kindred, every nation, every language. In this passage, many of them are dead and they're before God there, and we see that, but this tells us that there will be the elect. Again, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they claim that they're the fulfillment of this. But the Bible is very, very specific, that these are individuals from these tribes. And so when they try to tell me this, I say, well, which tribe are you from? Not to mention, if you go further in Revelation, chapter 14, verses 1 through 4, the Bible here tells us, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. They sung, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. Now notice, these are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and to the Lamb. And so, not only are they Jews from these various tribes, but these are young Jewish men, virgins. What we find in this is that they are sealed. They're doing the work of the Lord there. But notice, when we think about Bible prophecy, he does not indicate that the whole of the nation is sealed. Indeed, the tribulation period is a time of Jacob's trouble for a reason. Much of Israel will be destroyed and killed and all of that. It's just as is taught in Romans chapter 11. God has not cast away his people, national Israel. There is a remnant, his elect, and these are just some of those who the Bible mentions are chosen, indicated among those that I believe Jesus is talking about here in Mark chapter 13, when he says that his angels will go and gather his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. Not one of God's elect will ever be lost. At the final, when it's all said and done, God's not going to accidentally miss one of his elect. They will all be gathered. And that's Jew as well as Gentile. And that's all by the grace of God, all in the plan of God. These angels will do his bidding as they go and they gather them together. And so then he speaks in a parable. Verses 28, 29 of Mark chapter 13. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender, putteth forth leaves, ye shall know that summer is near. So ye in like manner, you shall see these things come to pass. Know that it is nigh, even at the doors. The parable of the fig tree. Just as the fig tree's buds turning into leaves was a sign of the nearness of summer, so also the events described by Jesus are a clear indication of the return of Christ. This is the answer to the question of the disciples that they were looking for in verse 4. Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled? This was the answer. These were the signs that would herald in the return. There's indications, in other words. Verse 30, he says, Verily I say unto you, that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done. A wrong interpretation here can cause great confusion and indeed false hope. When Jesus said, this generation shall not pass till all these things be done, he wasn't talking about that generation, the generation of those disciples. Because that generation did pass, and those things have not yet happened. But on the flip side, even in our day, 2,000 years later, sometimes Bible interpreters, Bible teachers, Bible commentators, Bible preachers, even though their intentions may be good, sometimes, if reading into this, we may get this wrong as well. Notice that in all of this, I've not mentioned World War II, the United Nations, the establishment of Israel as a nation in 1948. The reason for that is, I don't believe it's in this text. Some men have said it was. But in 1948, it's been a while. And indeed, getting this wrong and cause great confusion among God's people. I'm not going to say I have all the answers here, but I will say this. I believe that the generation that's spoken of here has to do with exactly what he's speaking of in the context of this text. The generation of people who are living at the end times that witness the signs and events leading up to the return of Christ. And a key piece of this is the Antichrist. Verse 14, when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand, then let them that be in the Judea flee to the mountains. I believe that's the key. When ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. How can it be us when the temple is not even in Jerusalem for the Antichrist to stand in? Now, do I believe that Jesus could return in our lifetime? Absolutely, I believe that. I believe he may come back today at the first phase of his second coming. You see. But I don't know the time, I don't know the date, I don't know the hour. All I know is that we're closer today than what we were yesterday. I also want us to guard ourselves against some eschatology that says that everything's going to be over soon anyway, so let's just meet 3 times a week till Jesus comes. No need to evangelize, no need to plant churches, no need to instruct the young people, no need to plan a vacation, no need to live life because Jesus is coming back. That's the wrong idea. You realize if you go back in history, going all the way back through the last 2,000 years, there have been some pretty terrible times that God's people have gone through. Times of great persecution. Times when churches like ours wouldn't even be able to meet in the open. Times when you could be killed just for showing up to a meeting like this. Put in prison. Times when it was against the law to have a Bible in your possession. Times when men got killed for simply translating the Bible into the common vernacular. Times when there were great and terrible wars. Times when there were plagues and all sorts of things. What did those people do? They didn't just give up, grab a lawn chair, and camp out and wait for the Lord to come back. No, they pressed forward, even if it meant meeting in caves, in secret places, and whatever. They didn't have comfortable buildings to meet in and all that, and sometimes they had to flee from one place to another, but that's okay. They kept pressing forward, instructing the next generation, planning churches, organizing churches, translating Bibles, all of that. The work of the Lord continued. Why? Because they didn't know when the Lord was going to come back and when it was all going to be over. And neither do we. And so we must continue on. The work of God must continue. I hope he does come back soon. I hope he comes back today. But if not, that doesn't mean that we neglect the work that he has for us. And as we think about the things that are written herein, let us consider what's written here, but let's not get so distracted that we're looking for signs, that we're looking for the rebuilding of the temple, that we're looking for Antichrist, that we're trying to figure out who he is and all of that. Let's just be looking for Jesus. And let's be serving him, faithful to his word, until that time comes that he calls us home to be with him. Because this is the reality. Whether Jesus comes back in our lifetime or not is a question. But the reality is, we'll all meet Jesus in our lifetime. In the space of 50 years, most of us, if the Lord hasn't come back, most of us will be in the graveyard. At least our bodies will be there, and we'll be with Jesus. We're going to be with him. And so let's be faithful. Leave the timing up to him and just be faithful to the work that he has for us. Rejoice knowing heaven and earth, verse 31, he says, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. What you see now, all this, it's going to be gone. But God's word, it's going to stand. And we can praise God for that. That's where our assurance is. This is where we need to take our stand. And thank God that this life is not all there is. May God add the blessing to his word. Are you ready for his return? Do you know him today? The gospel's been preached here many times. Repent and believe the gospel.